I hope you're all well and cozy. And I think the welcome rain last night has made us all feel quite wintry today. So straight on to tonight's demo, which is by Karin Davel, who's going to show us what wonderful tools and media we have in our homes and how to create the most fantastic work with them. Karin is our vice chair. She grew up in Centurion and has a fine art degree from the University of Pretoria. She's taught at various high schools in the Natal Midlands, as well as having her own gallery in Hilton for 5 years. And since moving to Cape Town in 2015, she runs art retreats around the Western Cape, as well as being an integral part of our society. As you know, Karin is an artist with a wide variety of skills and loves to draw and paint wherever she finds herself, and is probably best known for the incredible freehand drawing she does with her sewing machine. She's held 10 solo exhibitions around South Africa, participates regularly in group exhibitions, and has work in many private collections around the world. Please feel free to send questions on the chat function on the Zoom, or you can WhatsApp me on 072 322 1745, and I'm going to ask Karin questions afterwards. She is going to write notes, because the subject matter is so varied, she is going to write some notes which will be in next month's newsletter. Okay, I think over to you, Karin.
Nice. Still you.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Must I speak now? Is it my
and it will be, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't see myself yet, so am I on? Okay, fine, there I am. Good. It's lovely just to be with people that I know, and even though I can't see you tonight, I mean, I can see you in my mind's eye, because that's the nice thing when you actually do something for a group of people that you come to know. And that's one of the best things I've done, is to get to know people this way, is by joining societies. Wonderful. Just to start off with, I want to show you, normally we will paint with these things that you don't see it at the moment, but I've got all kinds of natural tools, on my table in front of me. And I'm sure, did she give you a dual view now? I don't know. I don't know when these things work as dual views. Oh, there it is. Yeah, thank you. So, so you see, this is the normal kind of a brush as I would use when I paint, and my paints are my normal watercolor paints. And I decided to experiment a lot with different mediums over this last week or so, to see what can happen when we work with something that's in our house, and that we don't have to spend a lot of money on, and go and do, experimental things, and things that will just bring, hi, I didn't know that can happen, and so on, that kind of a feeling. So I saw then that certain colors, there's a very limited color range of things available, when we work with normal things like, I can also show you this now. Let's show you what I'm working with tonight. I have also I tried all different types of coffee, like Nescafe Classic. I've got Recoffee that I tested, and I tried curry powder, a paprika, smoked paprika, because I thought that's very vibrant and red, and the turmeric, because that's normally the one that you put into really, and you can't get it out of your Tupperware, so maybe hopefully it will stay on your artwork. And work with coarse salt that you can actually grind, and I've got white vinegar, and things like that, and then blueberries as well is one of my things that I'm using. So yeah, let me just get rid of this. You've seen it now. So that is the things that I'm going to use tonight, because I felt let's try and do something out of the box. And as I say, the reactions that you get, and it might not even be what you see now and tonight, and tomorrow you will actually, if you come back to your artwork, you will see something very different, because the colors have kept on responding to one another. And And then eventually what you thought was a nice pink color that will make a nice sunset, then turn into something that has become totally dull or brown or green or stuff like that. So it's quite interesting. Now I'm going to take this away. So this is now what I used, and let me show you then, since I saw that I could make something that looked quite purpley, since I'm using my berries. There's my blueberries, and they are very precious, I must say. At the moment you can't get them, so you only can buy them frozen. So once I've worked with it, pop, that goes into my mouth and you eat it. You can't waste anything, no? Yeah, and I must just show you, I've got wine here as well. And because, I mean, you've seen what we're going to do as challenges for the next few months that's coming. We try to think slightly out of the box, and we said, okay, let's do, for the next month will be coffee or wine. And then the other one is also later on is something charcoal and pastels, and then another one is collage. So some of these things will be actually quite useful to know now. So yeah, anyway, so I just want to show you, this is the good quality wine. I told me this is now Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot mix 2018, and he gave me very little. And then he gave me another container, and he actually said he was willing to give me a cup full, because this is Blanc, normal Blanc. And I must tell you, it does not work so well. So no reason except there's Blanc. Anyway, yeah, so what I did then in the end is quickly make a watercolor work with normal brushes and my normal paints, and just to see what will happen and what colors will come out. Now I try to harmonize it, so there's basically only the colors that I can manage to more or less make with my different herbs and spices and all kinds of things I'm using. And then also that will harmonize and contrasting colors on the color wheel, and they enhance one another. Yeah, so that's the watercolor work. So yeah, that's what's my references for tonight. Just want to show you quickly before I start. I just want to show you some of my experiments that I made. And yeah, I started playing around. Just want to show you, for instance, now if you want to make, if you're more interested in making more abstract like work, you can go play and cut yourself little templates like this, and then they become little masks that helps you to just make your mark by using your tool, and it blocks it off so you don't get the paint everywhere else. And all these things are actually quite liquid, so yeah, I must put it down quite firmly, hold it, otherwise it will start bleeding underneath it. All right, and then interestingly enough, yeah, let me show you quickly all the things I am going to use before I start showing my art things. Let me get my cardboard, and that is the group of things I'm going to use. You know, as you can see, it's all normal things that we have in our house, and toilet rolls can be nice for if you like a sense of circles, or you want to make that painting of a coffee cup and it's spilt and whatever, and you press in your wine or whatever, and you smudge it. You just push it down and smudge it a bit. You will see when I work now what kind of emotions I use to make it. Old credit cards, rope, you know, and I think the sisal rope will actually be more interesting because it has a harsher mark, and it will make different kind of extra ends and marks to it. The one that I enjoyed most actually working with was an old blade of my craft knife, because it's got short ends and a slightly longer end with a broken area and so forth. So I can actually scrape with that, or I can stamp with it. And so that is actually what I use if we look at my pictures that are underneath here. And this is what I use to make all these straight lines. So it's very useful to actually to get that kind of a linear quality and repetitiveness of a fence or something like that. Or even the drag, if I wanted there, my thing was loaded with lots of coffee, and I dragged and it had a darker mark, and when I dragged again, there was less coffee on it, so it made a lighter mark and got more textured, as if it's been lime washed into a whitish kind of a fence. And earbuds and things like that can be used, and they can actually help to keep the colors quite concentrated. What I really enjoyed a lot was also working with my old toothbrush as a drawing tool, and to see what kind of a things you can do by using the tip, and be gentle when you do. Never just go and try and force anything. Just gentle and see what happens when you work with your things. Use it also a piece of paper as a mask. Then when you say now you want to make half a circle, you want to go for these kind of a medallion like people or something like that, you might make a bit of a sci-fi picture. You can block it like that and then just stamp, and you get the texture from the foam that picks up. And that is, for instance, now can be like, I like this one, for instance, my roller, but now it gives me enough space to hold it, and I can just put down and push it down, and then it actually makes bubbles. And in the end, let me go closest to the camera that you can actually see. It makes interesting textures. And this was interesting that I made this one by pushing, loading and pushing quite hard, and slowly but surely I pressed lighter and lighter and lighter, and it almost has like a sense of little birds walking across a beach, and you can get a density of tone and a lightness of tone. Because in the end, whether we work with strange objects or we work with normal tools, doesn't matter. It's the same rules that apply, whether we are working, as it's just tones. It's about if your work has tone contrasts in it, it will work. And then if there's nice sense of balance and there's a good composition of the things that you've made, those are your beginning points of anything. So play around, and that's it. Let me just show you also the difference of mediums that I managed to look at. And just want to show you. What's very important is that you also go look how shiny it will be, when we put some stuff on. Sure, it's amazing. Some of this, I've done this days ago, and I actually kept the salt crystal on it. And now the salt crystal has actually gone and become tacky. I should have just taken it down after I've actually get it to respond. I want to show you what happens when we put salt with water. Well, that one made a mess now. But normally what it does is it actually makes the light that comes to go away when it's water. And then so there's lightness under the object, where when we use vinegar, the dark colors go and sit underneath all these little crystals, and then they make speckles, and then they just make like a round little bubble of an open shape. So this can be actually a very interesting way to make a little flower. Let me come closer. Can you see? So to create a kind of a flower-like look with a different color, that's one of the ways that one can do. All right, and so I played. Try to kind of say block off and create another little, so you use your little template and then move it slightly. Did that one first and then moved it a little bit and did another one to get a double tone and so on. So just a kind of, that's all I can say is have fun and enjoy what you're doing and see what comes. And and as I say, if it doesn't work, no, don't work on the biggest and the most expensive paper that you've got in the house. Try and work with, like what I've done here was work with the offcuts from the insides of framing mount boards. We have a business like that, so I've got lots of little cardboards, and they are wonderful sturdy surfaces. The background is quite a smooth one. Must say that one doesn't tolerate being made wet too often, and also doesn't like to be scratched when we use a hard tool like the blade or something like that. So but what is nice is the top surface. It has a bit of a texture to it. So when I then drag, let me show you what I did with a wine. Interestingly enough, my blueberries. I took a frozen one and I dragged it across and rolled it. So the ice also came along and it actually made a very interesting mark, and it picked up the textures of the material. And that's wine and this blueberries. So you can interestingly stuff that the red wine looked quite pink in the beginning, and unfortunately all of it became quite purple. And then if you double do it, put down and push it down, and it's the outside. Those ones I did with the inside, cutting it open, and it's very vague. So if you want that soft tone, yes, use the inside. But if you want a darker tone, use the dark outside. There I used turmeric, and then I brought some wine, I dripped water into it, and it made a nice, almost a halo look like a sun. And on this side, I dripped the wine. And in the beginning, it looked like a beautiful sunset. And the next morning, it now has this kind of a feeling of, I don't know, browns, greens, stuff like that, even purples. So you keep that in mind when you are going to make something, that you're not disappointed with what you have chosen to do. Here's another thing that I've done just now, and wanted to show you. We can always use also things like cling wrap, and that creates interesting marks. And I did actually mark into it as well, but all the other interesting marks that came from the plastic. And I should have kept it on longer. And the darker your color is, the more effective you will be with what you're making. And remember, this is very much like watercolor or ink. So it's a water medium. You try and keep your light color and work from light to dark. So start with your lighter tones first, and slowly but surely build into them. And extra layers instead of like we do with oils the other way around. Just want to show you the difference here, the different types of coffee. I tried House of Coffees. Maybe I just gave me the very weak bottom dreg, I don't know, but it came out incredibly weak. I was not impressed at all. And then Rick Coffee worked very well. It's a beautiful, rich color, but can you see if I go like this, how much it shines? It's awful in a way. So, I mean, that will immediately become a problem in your artwork, because then some areas will shine a lot and others won't. So rather than use, the next time I used coffee, where is this one? I use now Nescafe. So when it's very strong, but this is also because it's still, no, it's actually not, it's dry. So Nescafe, when it's really a strength, then it will actually full strength. It will also shine a bit, but not nearly as much as the Rick Coffee did. And then so this is a better one to try and use. So no wonder we pay more for it. All right, and then I tried smoked paprika. Well, this worked well, but all these things, like I tried also cayenne pepper, and I tried even what is it I've used now lately was the last one was curry. And they actually don't really work so well, because they stay granule, they stay grainy and dusty, and we can actually dust it off afterwards once you've applied it. And maybe that's a better way, to actually just dust it off, and you get rid of your textures as well. Or otherwise, if you want the textures, you spray it afterwards and it will stay there. In this one, I engraved into it with my pair of scissors, and I just tried to draw into it with to get a bit of sense of light. So there's a bit of a landscapey thing in here. So I quite like the rich tones of the paprika, and the smoked paprika. I don't think the normal paprika is not that vibrant. And that's it. So let me get going. And just interesting to see. There's peri peri. I tried that as well, but it really just stayed a paste. It really didn't want to become a liquid. And the same with the pepper. And then the red wine was beautifully red and pinky the first day. And then when I came back the next morning, it was all very purple. So it's a nice, rich, neutral color. So all these colors are not very vibrant. So I think your artwork will be less vibrant than the watercolor work has landed up to be. But that's it. I loved actually doing this one, and I will show you now when I do it to drag the blade, and you create your sense of bark, and you stamp your branches, so to get this kind of a haphazard natural look of where branches go. And as we all know, this is one of the things that most people know what to do with a toothbrush, is then to use it also as a spattering tool. And this one I also use to drag the landscape line to make a very interesting marks. And always keep in mind, whatever you're drawing, there's a source of light. And I have to say that is now my source of light, since it's like a sun. So I will make sure that my light falls on my right hand side of my object, and create with your shadow tones. And then this will now cast the shadow this way. And I will make that rock in the shadow here. And that one was also just made with a blade. Okay. And then all these things were just stamped. So now you stamp on your grasses and like that, because it's actually better to stamp on rather than breaking the surface by engraving into it. It's very permanent. And as I say, not a lot of papers actually like it a lot to be damaged like that. I tried also, especially in one of the smaller things I did, doesn't really show now, but doesn't matter. I tried to use sandpaper. Let's leave it there. Thank you. And so now I can take all my tools away so I can get going. Oh, there is it. Can you see I started, I thought I had a lovely sunset, and I had a yellow turmeric, and then I brought the red wine, and it was a nice orangey tones. And then next morning it came out to be quite an olivey color. Not bad, but it's actually it's quite moody. And then the purple was actually my blueberries that I put on afterwards, and that one stayed. And because I use sandpaper, and I've got coarse sandpaper and I've got a finer one, you just damaged your paper. Wherever you damage it, it will actually then make that the paint sits on, and those colors sit in those places. And my apple, I don't know, it became a plum overnight. So and there I actually did layering. So it's interesting that actually stayed, and it made quite an interesting modern art kind of a thing that you can utilize. Because afterwards, when this is dried, I just went with one of my blueberries and I stamped it, and it worked to stay like that. Right? Okay, so let's get going. I think I'm going to keep working on this size. Let's work on this size. Can I take all this away? All my tools away? And even plastic stuff. And I'm sure people can go find their own things at home that they like, but as I say, all things are quite liquid, because I thought bubble wrap will also be an interesting way to print, So you can actually make very interesting backgrounds first, and then start making something that's, recognizable landscape or something on top, or a bird or whatever. So find an object in your picture, what you've made on your paper. Don't let it, as I say, this is such a odd little thing that we can work with. So okay, let me just surround me here with all my tools. And you've seen this as well. I mean, we all get them and we wonder, what do you do with this? It's actually to strengthen your canvas at the back. I think a lot of people don't use it, but it's a nice tool to also use as a scraper. And you can also now have this, so you can have little, even if you want to build a house, you can do stamp little stamps of almost tile-like things. Right, so let's get all excited about what you've got in your house. I love actually using my combs as well, especially people who, when you want to make a landscape line, and all the lines lead to the one vanishing point, more or less. So that's what we will use, this kind of a thing, and all of that has to be done while it's still wet. Otherwise, if you do it later on, you can maybe do it by bringing another color over. But try and do most of your changes while the things are still wet. Lovely tool to work with also is a feather. And it's the same almost as your rigger. So if we have to now go and double up the things that I've used, I will say, this is now the same as your rigger, is basically will have the same effect as a feather. And if you have a fan brush, for grass and things like this, I would suggest use what I said, this the toothbrush. And yeah, and I think, where's this other piece of rope now? Over there. Yeah, I mean, the sisal one will also be very interesting if you dip it into your color and smear it and do kinds of stuff with it. Right. So yeah, let's get excited and let's get going. Right. And let's get that out of the way. Otherwise, I use my tools and I don't want to use it. I want to be honest and not use my normal art. So yeah. Right. There's the picture, and I must get these ones closer, please. Now, all my tools. I just want to show you also another thing that I used in the past. And I was at a friend's house, and she had this lovely ginger cat. And the only thing I had with me was a golden orangey color lipstick. So I drew the cat with a lipstick, and then I just added a little bit of Inktense and pen afterwards. And but I didn't have the color of the cat, and I thought that will make a nice subtle. So it made quite a, I don't know if the paint, can you see? Make quite a nice, interesting, subtle mark. So it's a fun way. Oh yeah, I just wanted to say also, this book here, if we look at artists, magazine, South African Artists, 56 as the newest one, and you will recognize maybe the photograph. And there's quite a few people that we know. It's also in there. Ellie Melk is in there, Sue Paulson's work is in there, and Natalie Hirschman. So quite a few of our members and friends are as workers represented in here. And why I was interested, because it says painting with coffee. So, and there was a competition and beautiful works came out. And they must have added a little bit of colors as well, because there's a bluey color. Let me just get it not to shine. See, that's a beautiful portrait. And then beautiful portraits, but these are now painted with normal brushes and very careful painting, but is only using coffee and maybe a bit of paint. And Ina, I know did very well, and she only painted with coffee, and that's, I think, why she did better. And it's the same rules that apply, work with your diluted coffees into a wet surface to get that soft, hazy far distance, and then as you come forward, you layer lighter tones with more water added to do that, and then add on more specifics and intensity and make your coffee as strong as possible, or double, triple layer the thing, so you can get those very intense marks. Right, there's a few others. I know Christula also must have added some other paint, and I know she has had that up as a competition piece for something else as well, for the Waza competition. And I think that shows you that these materials are they have longevity. It's not to say that it will fade, because it's natural materials. Because I mean, if you look at what the what you call it, the Bushmen and those people worked with, they definitely only worked with very natural things. So I think it's quite possible that this can stay. I've worked a lot with cake coloring, and yeah, and they actually, my colors have stayed totally vibrant. And with cake coloring, what is so nice about it is that you can actually work with jig into it, and you can actually get things out of the, lift it away again and make it white. Right. So yeah, I'm not going to draw as such. I'm just going to see as we go. I think if there's going to be a tree more or less in that area, and first of all we start with our soft backgrounds. First, let me start and mix a little bit of for this I will use my normal tool, otherwise I can't mix it. Yeah, this is the turmeric, because the others are I just want a little bit more. Right, now I use it all with water, And I think hot water is slightly better than cold water. But don't bring a swimming pool of water into your color, otherwise it will dilute it too much and then you've got no variation in tones. Otherwise you must have more than one container. Right, so once you've made this now, one can now just take your broad brush or you can spray it on if you want to. I just want to get a soft yellow look on my sky like I've got in the other picture. Oh wow, shame my brush has gone kick some of my darker colors on. No, well, it doesn't matter. So just first bring your water so that you don't get immediate fix of color, and go about, say, a third of the way. And yeah, what I'm going to work with now is the same. I'm going to work with a sponge and just apply it with this sponge. Just want to soften it a little bit so it's not that vibrant and yellow. So I can very lightly work with your hand crosses and bring some of the color maybe forward so we can have some of the vibrancy also running right through your picture. Okay, and then while you've got this strong yellow on it now, you can now maybe add, but I think for this one I can do such a large sun. We'll just take a foam and load it and put it down so it will make a nice sense of a sun. And if I feel I want to go through it again and maybe let light or whatever going through it, why not? Like there's a bit of a cloud or something going through. You can do all kinds of things like that. Then the same thing now happens with my wine. Just want to add a bit of wetness here again. Okay. I've got a nice assistant here called At. He's helping me. So yeah. And just get, I think I'm going to rather take the better quality wine, and hopefully this will help us to get a bit of a soft purpley look. Thanks. And one of the things I'm definitely going to work with is, and I don't want to get my fingers all purple, so I'm going to use my blueberries. And I want to create a sense of a landscape line, like a bit of a mountain. While it's wet now like this, I don't get this, it's anyway very nice aromatic kind of a experience, because you smell all these things. It's not like oil paint. It has quite a potent smell. I mean, I like the smell of oil paint, but my body doesn't always like it. So let's see if I can. Oh, now they've all done. My water is off. It. Bring me some more that are not. I just want to quickly do some of. See if I can get some of my. If I do lavender fields here. Is I'll have to do a few layers of this. And do a few at a time so that you can then take your blade or your pair of scissors or something like this and scrape a little bit into it. So wherever we hurt the paper, it will actually, next time I go in again, it will darken the color so that I get a sense of, so I do kind of a almost scraping like line up and down. So I can get that sense of stalks of lavender. Okay, thank you. More that are still frozen. Let's see what happens with this. You know, as I say, it's far more vibrant when they're frozen still. So it's almost like working with a crayon. And hopefully the colors will be far more. So now I try and work like shadow, light, shadow, light, shadow, light, almost like corrugated iron, so that I get that sense of reality. And it will pick up also some of my natural, and I mean, even if some of the material, now let's use the soft one first because it creates a liquid that will, interesting red that comes out, but unfortunately it doesn't stay. It becomes very purple and grayish. Now stamp, 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 oopsie daisy, and there it's gone all funny. I think the inside piece or whatever has come out. I think once it's dry, then you can just scrape it off, you know, so it's layering of colors now that we're after. And think now of your perspective principle, that we want to fan it out so that it becomes something that will come forward. As I say, just remember to keep on scraping into it if you want marks. This blade is, to my mind, for this too sharp, so it will really break your cardboard or your paper. So I like my blunt. I've got a very old blunt pocket knife of my granddad, and that one is actually quite a nice tool maker because it doesn't break up the surface too much. But this one is actually quite, I must say, it does break it up quite a bit. Okay, but that's the way I'm making now lavenders. And slowly but surely we'll build the tones and bring other colors over it and layering different colors. And ek gaan nie ek genoeg, dankie liefie. En dan moet ek hulle maar eet. I can eat them now. Yeah. Okay, well, it's touched only that, so pop it in my mouth. Yeah, maybe I'll start drinking the wine as well, and then eventually I can be the meal for the day. Yeah. Let's do some before I carry on with that. Let's also start making some rocks in the foreground here, and start with a lighter color first. We say, okay, this is now large, they're going to be in the foreground. So I'm going to take some of my turmeric and create rock-like shapes, and I go all over. I can leave a little bit of white as well, but it's actually too stark, then it will immediately draw your attention when it's so different from the rest. So a little bit of whites in between, like if we go back to my watercolor work, little bits of white that you leave in between becomes interesting. But if you leave big blobs of white, it's going to become an irritation, because that's the lightest tone. Your eyes want to look at that. So rather stay away from being too, like that. Let's go for coffee now. I want to, and I think now let's do next the paprika. Where's my brush there? Just want to quickly make some more paprika. So say the hot water is slightly better to mix it, otherwise it stays quite powdery. And but don't let all the water run there, just enough so that you can actually get it into a paste. It smells wonderful. And this is I see I've done quite a lot of time already. My husband's showing me. Okay, let's go on. And then I'll pick up some paprika here, and I'll use my scraper, and I'll try and use some of the scrapers to to apply around and make a mark here and some more there. So where the shadow, because I said there's my light source. I want my light to be on the top side. So I'll start with my orange tones first and scrape around. Can you still see my border's not gone off the image? Yeah, it's a bit off. Yeah, you come forward. Right, so let that dry a little bit and settle, and then we go back to, and now we can, at this, while I've got the paprika all fresh here and liquid, one can now say, oh, I don't want to use my brush. I will be naughty if I do. So, okay, let's try then and just pick up with a blade, and I'll pick up with a brush and then deposit it here. And I just want to create a sense of sand, like natural feeling of undercolor. And as I say, if it's thicker, it's slightly better, because then it allows us now to go and write into it. You know, like your society, like sticks or stuff, is not that harsh, so they can actually now become bits of grass or whatever that you rub into it. But don't go too active into this. Maybe keep the horizontal line going, because that might give us a sense of that we're in a road, we're on the soil, talking about the soil. And on this side, let's bring some of our turmeric there as well, because we're looking at canola fields to balance out our lavender. I don't know whether they all work on, if they all flower at the same time, but in my picture it does. So yeah, let's get going. Well, I've got a brush again, sorry. We get into the habits now. Let's go with a toothbrush. It will do the same thing. All right, okay. I've lost a bit of space, but I will leave some of my space that I can do a building there. So let's get a building, a white edge there for the go next to the building here. And there's my building going to there. All right. So now I went, because my roof will go there, it doesn't matter what I'm doing with it. So that's the canola field. What I can do afterwards is then bring some of that. I can now bring some of my canola or my yellow in here as well, because remember what I said, what happened when I did the turmeric and the purple on top of one another, we managed to get a sense of green. So maybe tomorrow what I will have here is a sense of green that will get me my plant feeling. And I can maybe bring a little bit of it in between here, just as a touch of a connection and just a playful mark that we make. Right, and then what we're going to do, carry on with the purples there. Where's my berries? And yeah, so they're getting all soggy here now. I'll have to eat them fast now. Now let's use the rubber, the frozen ones better rather. And interesting how red they are when we start, and then unfortunately they become purple. But yeah, well, it's also not unfortunate. Just keep it in mind for what you are making, right? And as I say, remember, if you've been hurting the paper with either sandpaper, that has to come before. You can't really sandpaper. You have to damage your cardboard before you actually put anything on top, and then it will create an interesting texture for your landscape. And textures are normally what we will use in the foreground, so rather use your textured things in the foreground. Right, so I'm bringing it back a little bit more, yeah, while I've got some frozen berries still, and I want to emphasize it and make it stronger. So really dab, and slowly but surely this will get stronger, and I will create my landscape there. And now let's work with this blade into this. Okay. As I say, this one hurts the paper a bit too much, so I don't like it too much. I like it for stamping more. Right. Okay, let's go and see if I can do the tree. Now, let's start with a blade and coffee. I've got, in this one, I've got the Nescafe. And this one makes quite a nice vibrant brown. Let me get a bit of hot water. So it gets quite tacky quickly, and then it doesn't want to dissolve. And I mean, it's like, you know, if you do frame something like this, you will frame it the way we would do with a watercolor medium. It will be behind glass and with a mount board separating it from the glass so that there's no contact. So if it does stay slightly tacky, I don't think it will actually stay tacky for a long time. It will stop eventually. So because it's never good to frame something with something liquid still going on. I just want to show you now we're going to make a tree, and that's too liquid. So let's just get the right consistency. So now it's drier. I'm starting to get the texture of my bark more in an interesting way. And we also, if you look at my picture that I did before, it's a case of, see, press hard and drag, so to get this kind of a light dark feeling. And don't let your tree exit your paper too much, rather let it be based at the bottom there, so that we don't cut it off and crop it that way. It's not comfortable. All right, so now it's difficult now to create the branches with this blade because it's too stiff. So I think for that, we will rather use just want to wash this, otherwise it gets all sticky. And next time I'll be sorry if I want to use it. And so keep cleaning your things as you go. And yeah, so what's important now is to say maybe we can use a credit card because it has the ability to bend. And you can even cut up your credit card so it actually creates smaller pieces that you can do different types of size branches and so on. So yeah, now that allows us now to go and create this type of thing, because you scrape press and it's a kind of a playful kind of a mark making, and remember to keep bending so that you can get that natural look of a tree. Bring some of that down here. And what you can do also is when this is now dry, one can go back and also use your different colors that you keep on combining them as they become part of the picture. So I will use purples again over that to get us a darker tone. And let's just bring quickly before I forget, I want some rocks on this side as well. So what did I use to do the rocks? Well, the toothbrush now. The toothbrush is quite wet. Anyway, just get some rocks on this side. One rock here. Oh no, that's the road actually. And I want to keep some of the road here open. It will go around. Doesn't matter if it's got a bit of yellow on it. So do a rock there And maybe another rock coming from the outside. And yeah, you can even rub some of your color over there. And it's another thing that's nice to draw. If we go back to the branches of the tree. Oh, come on. He wants to come and I don't want him to come and play now. Stuck to my finger. Yeah, as to say, use a feather. I love feathers. They are amazingly free and loose, and they have beautiful subtle marks that they make. And it's always good to go. I say always go from where it grows to where it goes. So don't push it inwards, pull it outwards. So you get this natural kind of a feeling. Okay, and we want this to be the main induna. So it's going to be quite a big tree, an important statement in your artwork. And yeah, in here we will now, while we're somewhere talking about it, I might say I want to use my brown coffee also now to create a roof. And I can now just go up and down like this. And remember now, this is my shadow time side of my building, because the light is behind the building. So that's basically where the roof will be. And then, yeah, always just remember in perspective, whatever is further away from you will be slightly smaller than what is closer. Now here I've placed it fairly horizontal to the bottom of the page, so it can be quite parallel, but yeah, just make it slightly smaller this side and that side, and it will feel quite real. And then yeah, one can now playfully drag these marks along and just indicate where your thing will be. And some of it can actually, when your brush is getting empty, now in this case your feather, you can play over it to just get a subtle tone. So it's not this stark white wall. All right, so it's, and then what I do here is I want that line to feel like it's going up. So I will now use my scissors or something like this. So I just get a sense of depth there. Right. And that will get another layer later on. So it's basically just indicating for yourself where you want to go with this. So this is a very impressionistic way of working. It is definitely not super realistic, because we're working with tools that are out of control, kind of. And I can even, since my feather is now splitting, I can just go and stamp almost there to get a sense of windows. Or you can even maybe use the back of the quill feather, but I quite like the natural softness of the mark. This one gives too much. It wants to, want to give you all the control. And I quite like it when you haven't got so much control. Okay. Now I can now draw and create more of a shadow and more specifics and so on. But just because of the tonal contrast that I've got there already, you can see that there's the building. Right, keep cleaning your things so that you don't pack on your materials and make them all tacky. And yeah, wash it with water and then just soften it, clean it with your tissue. Right, so now what are we going to do now? I want to try and get a sense of greenery in the foliage of my tree. Slightly wet still, but it doesn't matter too much. I've got a yellow undercolor, and what we saw on that one card I showed you earlier was when I put the yellow and the purple on top of one another, that was the wine. I managed to get a greeny look, but I wonder whether I shouldn't just do the purple of the blueberries, but let's just not the blanc. We try and be very classy and use the quality wine. And yeah, just want to, can maybe just use it to throw some of your wine down. So and it will react in its own way. And yeah, we want to create a sense of darkness in the bottom area. So yeah, and I think definitely let's do this with a toothbrush. And this is a very interesting mark maker. And we can now turn it into a kind of a brown one, and also add on some of my coffee, my stronger coffee. I didn't have a big liking for the curry anyway, and it's too smelly. You know, it really turns it into a kind of a potpourri of scents and stuff. So yeah, one can now dab it like this to get a sense of foliage and things like this, and let the air and the sky color still through, and it will be quite dark. It's almost like those paw prints that I said of the birds that we had on the beach in my small picture. If I just dab it. Right, let's go and now use some of this and see what will come. Now it will become quite purpley, but that creates a shadow tone. So it's interesting. When it's very wet, it becomes very weak in color. So yeah, try and just take out 1 or 2 at a time out of your freezer, so that we can get a nice intense color all the time. Right, and let's see, if it doesn't turn green or something like this, doesn't matter, then it's a sense of shadow that you've got there. And now one can now even use some of your toothbrush, your earbuds and stuff like this, and decide. I don't know if it will work well. Let's see. I think will rather pick up than it will put down. I think I'd rather use the feather again to create the sense of the leaves, of the branches going outwards. Now, my husband is keeping watch on the time, so you must tell me when I must stop. Just want to see quickly here for the foreground. You want to go into a road. I just want to show you one of the fence things as well. Oh yeah, we were busy now with this, with my rocks. So for instance, now I'll go draw with this, while I'll draw with the blade by scraping stronger color into this now, and drag it across. But now see, my other color is still wet, and it takes now tonight with this cool weather quite long for it to dry, so that's not so good. So I would suggest rather stamp on or whatever instead of taking it. No, but interesting to can you see what I do? I push pull kind of a thing almost to create a sense of, and my negative darkness of the shadows of the purple behind will now hopefully create the sense of natural rock. Yeah, and the only way I can get, if I go back to my picture and show you what I've done with a watercolor, the only way I will manage to get, say, this type of thing will be the layering and layering, so that we can. What are you doing outside?
Compost it.
Is the camera on? Oh, so what do you know?
Karin,
Yes.
Karin, just carry on talking. We can see
Okay,
you.
it's fine. Can you can see me? It's fine. Okay, right.
Turn it around.
Didn't realize that the camera has died, and I don't know, we recharged it, but
Okay.
doesn't matter. All I'm saying is, you know, when you're not satisfied, you know, this looks maybe quite wishy-washy at the moment, but as I say, everything like watercolor, and you would all know when you've worked with mediums like that, is the beginning phases are quite vague, and it must go always from vague rather than to specifics. And like you saw, I worked into my landscape all over the place at the same time. I will do this, and I will also, I should have gone there, but I know we are short on time, so I just want to show you some of the techniques. So try and do your, say, your purple on this side and a purple on that side. So and so you get a sense of a balance across your painting. And then later on, one can then bring, say, your toothbrush or maybe a blade when everything is gone dry, and you can bring a little bit of your juiciness of your little black blueberries, and it will create more of a specific background line that we've got of this sense of a mountain behind the house and things like this. And you can bring in another tree like I had in that picture. Yeah, and slowly but surely we build the picture, and it's nothing is set in stone, it's your own making. I didn't see this picture anywhere. I decided somehow do it like this, and have fun. All what is important now, as I say, I still want to do the fence, but I must say I want to do landscape lines first before I start doing detail like a fence line. But if to do a fence, like I showed you before when earlier in the evening, was to stamp. And remember, once again, for perspective wise, the further poles will be shorter and closer together. And as we come forward and closer to the viewer, you will then spread your pole lengths further apart and make your pole slightly broader by using more color. And so all in all, I think it's we're going to come up with an interesting end result, quite exciting and a happening. We don't actually always know what will come in the end, but let's see. Well, will be a surprise as you to see this.
It's great fun. Can you hold your picture up? Can you hold it up against you?
Yeah, it's slightly wet, so but I mean you can now.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Don't run too much at the moment. You see it's coming along. It's you're starting to be a building, a landscape, I mean.
Given up
definite foreground, and I still have to now resolve this part and so on, and get darker and heavier in the foreground so my light is trapped in the middle section of my picture. And
it's fantastic. I really like the coffee and the sort of sepia effect that you get from that, and the mark making with the blade and the toothbrush. Brilliant for me.
And the sepia color is actually the one from the smoked paprika that makes such a lovely brown color. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, lovely natural color.
Yeah.
And
Karin, there was just one question about the paper, which I know you were using mount board. Hey?
Yeah.
From
for now, what I was planning on using was say a 200 gram Fabriano cold press paper, but it was very white, for the and I thought we haven't got enough time for that anyway.
Okay.
But this is mount board, and it's quite a sturdy surface to actually take the color. Yeah.
So nice sturdy, it's nice thickish paper so that you can
definitely work with this firm paper. But what I think, with this thing that we work with different mediums, and especially if we think of we're going to do collage as one of our our challenges for the future months, why can't you go and play around on different papers, like say tissue paper also, and paint on it and dip in it and see what happens, and then let these things dry and then tear it up and they become part of your collage. So do you actually build up, if you say do a little building as a little trial and error thing, why can't that then be glued in as part of your collage in the end?
Absolutely, yeah. Now, as we look forward to seeing what our members are going to do with some coffee and wine for next month's challenge.
Absolutely. I don't think the wine is a good one. I think the wine is very insipid. I think you need to drink the wine and then paint the coffee. Yeah. Far better.
Full sent a message now to say, love this demo. Thank you, as I now will look at coffee and spices with artist eyes.
Oh, good, wonderful. Oh.
Yeah, look at, and I wanted to also say, there's no excuse now for not painting or drawing when you're away and you don't have your tools with you, because there's always something around you to use.
Yeah, and your makeup and also the charcoal from the braai and things like that, that's for next time. You don't have to go buy charcoal sticks. You can just get the briquettes or whatever. Once they've burnt out, they become your drawing tool. Yeah. Okay.
Huge thank you to you and to Ut, who's been behind the scenes, as well as to Lizzie for controlling everything. And yeah, as I said, we look forward to seeing what everybody can maybe try something with coffee at least for next month. And thank you very much. That was brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you. Bye. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.